Okay, Erev Tov, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of our very generous host and hostess, welcome to the Benyoram family's home. And second week in a row, Mamash Kol HaKavod. He said he's not doing it anymore. But Baruch Hashem, Kol HaKavod. V'ezat Hashem, Kol HaKavod. Beautiful, beautiful. If anyone would like to have the shiur at their house, please speak to our social coordinator, Asi Kabesa. So this way we can make sure that we have a shiur as much as possible, V'ezat Hashem. So Asi, raise your hand just in case not everyone knows. There we go, Asi. Okay, with the permission. Okay, Chazak. Last week, Mor asked me specific to speak about Shalom Bayit. And I think we learned a lot about the parasha, a lot about Shalom Bayit. And this week I told him, okay, Mo, you want 2 weeks back to back? What do you want me to speak about this week? He said, Rabbi, I want you to speak about chinuch. I want you to teach us about our children, how to raise them in the best way possible. So we're soon going to see how the first topic of Shalom Bayit and the second topic of chinuch yeladim are very similar and they depend on each other. So let's go into this week's parasha. This week's parasha is the second Torah portion in our Humash, and that is Parashat Noach. Parashat Noach has a lot going on. The two main themes which take place in Parashat Noach is obviously the Mabul, the flood, and then there's also another whole episode, and that is the Dor HaPalaga, the generation of dispersion, which we will explain both. And our commentaries analyze the two and wonder what happened during both, which one was worse. But before we get into that, let's just understand. God sees the world 10 generations after He created mankind, and the world has degenerated to a very low place. Immorality, thievery, lying, killing, idol worship. It was not a good situation. God comes to the conclusion, we need to wipe this world clean. We need a new slate. God approaches Noah, which was the most righteous man in the world at that time. And he tells him to build an ark and take 2 of each animal and 7 of each of the kosher animals. Now, all animals were brought. Bigger animals, little animals, domestic animals, animals out in the wild, birds, all type of birds. Everything was brought in, even insects and creepy crawlers. Everything was there. There was one species of animal which was not invited into the ark, and that was the fish. Well, you may ask why. I tell you, why would Noah have to work so hard to make aquariums in the ark if the world is going to become a giant aquarium? And there'll be plenty of room for all the fish. And our Chachamim ask, well, what's so special about the fish? Why didn't the Mabul affect the fish? The Mabul affected everything else. The livelihood, the physical aspects of the world, people's homes and fields, all animals, all human beings, only fish not. And the Talmud explains that the reason why the fish were not affected by the Mabul is because they did not sin like the rest of the world. What does that mean? How did the world get to such a low place? Obviously by the greatest creation of all creatures, which was the human beings. And since humanity was doing such horrible things and immoral things and unethical things, the animals on the earth and even the birds all witnessed what the human beings were doing, and they were doing the same. In their own way, they were stealing. In their own way, they were killing. In their own way, they were acting immoral and unfaithful to their own species. But the fish were different. The fish didn't see all this. the fish did not live with the human beings. The fish were where? They were in the water. Not only were they in the water, there's being on the water, but then there's being in the water. The Talmud says that the fish are tsamui mina ayin. They are hidden. What does that mean they're hidden? So this aspect hidden, that they did not mingle with humanity. They did not learn from them. They did not get this horrible example from human beings. So they did not even need to be punished. But more than that, that all of the beracha that fish had and still have today is because they are hidden from the eye. They are what we call tsanua. Tsanua, the greatest translation of tsanua, the way I got it from my Rebbe, is dignified. Tsanua doesn't mean covered and in a box. It means living, it means being normal, but it's being dignified. It's not putting on a cloak and poking two holes. Whether you're a man or a woman, that's not called tsanua. On the opposite, would that be considered dignified? I don't think so. Tsanua means dignified. Fish also have this aspect. You could find fish, you could see them, they're available, but they're not in your face. They're not up and around. They have their corners, they have their places. And that's why when fish have their offspring, they come by the hundreds, the thousands, the millions. Everything is hidden. And for that reason as well, the fish were not affected by the Mabul. And that is a tremendous lesson as Yehudim, to never be in the spotlight, never try to get out there, especially when a person has things or does things, always being a little more tsanua, a little more not in people's faces. It only is a good thing, and we learn that from the fish who were spared from the flood. So this is, yeah. Okay, and one more thing, Bizchut HaNashim Chazak.
Yeah, I like that.
Listen to this. What is hidden at the beginning? A fetus. When a woman gets pregnant, it's not like there's a sign, I'm pregnant. Do you know that if theoretically there was, Chachamim say that the baby in its early stages, in its most vulnerable stages, would not be able to form and have the strength to continue to live. Already once it starts showing, the baby is already at a stronger and a more lasting stage. But prior to that, specifically the baby has to be hidden so no one looks. Now, looking's not a bad thing. Looking could be a good thing, it could be a bad thing, it could be not good and not bad, but always being hidden. And that's why every time a form of human life comes into the world, it always starts off by being hidden. There is tremendous amount of bracha when it's hidden. When a person conducts business, when a person conducts family affairs, when a person conducts marital relations, I'm just going on all different topics. The more dignified and hidden it is away from other people, the more bracha there will be. We see that by the form of life. We see that by the fish. We see that we have many different examples. We're not going to go through all of them now. That was not the point. We have that by Yaakov hiding his daughter Dinah from thing we find for David HaMelech. We have many different examples. But always, yes, there we go. Yaakov, when he tells his children to go to meet this viceroy who's in charge of Egypt, he tells them, don't all go through the same gate. Come from here, from the north, south, east. Don't come all together, because when you guys are all going to come together, it's very scary. Everyone's going to look at you. So come 2-3 brothers at a time, not everyone together. Always to be lo down, the luchot, many different examples. Hazak. This was the flood. The flood happened in the year 1656. So that means Adam HaRishon was born in year 1. Let's put it that way.
Wow.
And 1656 is when the flood took place. And at that moment, Noach was exactly 600 years old. Now comes the next episode. The episode of, as the way the Talmud speaks about it, as the Torah speaks about it, the Dor HaPalaga, the generation of dispersion. This happened 340 years after the flood. Mind you, just to remind you, the flood took a year. From the day Noach entered the ark and the day he exited the ark was just 1 year. You know how long it took him to build that ark? 120 years. 120 years to build that ark for 1 year. Okay? There's a lot to talk about that. We're not going to speak about that now. But in the year 1996, from the creation of the world, there was a group of influential individuals. And they come and they say, I want to quote to you the pasuk. The pasuk in the beginning of chapter 11 says, Vayhi kol haaretz safai hat. The whole land, the whole world spoke one language. Rashi says it was actually Lashon HaKodesh. They spoke Hebrew back then. Udvarim ahadim. And they all had one plan, as the Mefarshim explain. They had one plan to go against God. The Torah goes and says, they come together and they say, let's make a big city. Let's make a huge tower so high that it's going to get to the skies and reach into the heavens so we can wage war against God. It's ridiculous. But you want to know the more seemingly ridiculous thing about this whole concept? Is God goes along. He lets them build. He lets them come. He lets them think they have something on him. But what does God do? He comes down and he mixes up their languages. One guy says, pass me a hammer. In the other language, it means something nasty about the guy's mother. One guy asks him for a ladder, and in another language, it's something not nice about himself. And on, and on, and on. And they started fighting. They started killing each other. Until they realized, whoa, we're not communicating over here. And they each parted their own way. To the fact where they each had to even move out of their own original cities and towns in order to set themselves up. And that's how all the different languages came into the world. The commentaries, and foremost Rashi on the Parashat, he says, if I look at these two generations, the one of the flood and the one of the dispersion, based on the punishment, which one is worse? The destruction, complete annihilation of the whole world through the flood? Or just a little bit of a mix-up of a language and all the languages which caused them to diffuse and separate from each other? Obviously the first. But now if we look at the deeds, based on the deeds, which was worse? Well, the first you had immorality, you had bloodshed, idolatry, thievery, all horrible things. And in the second, only 340 years later, it was just idol worship. But not just idol worship, it was worse than that. It was waging war against God. Which seems worse? I think waging war against God. You can rationalize that all the other four was the person had a yetzer, they had a tava, they had a lust, a desire to do those things. But to get up and come together and build a tower against God, one of the most horrible things. So it seems like the punishment is not justified by the action. So very good. So listen to what the Midrash says. The Midrash says, God looks at the world and he saw during this generation of dispersion that the world was united. They had a common goal. Safai hat, they spoke the same language. They understood each other. They had open communication. Udvarim ahadim, they had one plan, one common goal. Although the goal was ridiculous, absurd, to go up against God, nevertheless, the unity is what brought them their power, to the point where God couldn't even do anything about it. The only way he was able to do something about it was to undermine their unity. How? By not allowing them to communicate. It was kind of like in a roundabout way. He couldn't bring another flood. Never mind that he promised Noach he couldn't bring a flood for the whole world, but he couldn't even send a lightning bolt or a fire or something to just destroy that tower or to kill those people. He had to undermine their unity because the power of unity is so strong. From here, the Mefarshim say, Gadol HaShalom. Peace and unity is the strongest thing that even God, without going in a roundabout way, could ever diffuse or separate. In Parashat Bechukotai, the beginning of Parashat Bechukotai, Torah tells us, if you follow in the will and the ways of God and the Torah, you'll be blessed and great things will happen. And then if not, it says the opposite. There's a verse over there. Listen to this verse. This verse is a tremendous lesson. Pasuk says, and I'll quote, "Vayirdefu mikem hamisha me'ah." You will be so blessed when you follow the will of God and the Torah that 5 of us, 5 Yehudim, could take on 100 of our enemies. It's a pretty good ratio. And then the Torah continues and says, "Ume'ah mikem," and 100 of you, Revava yirdofu, can take on 10,000. V'nafelu oyevechem lifnechem lehared, and your enemies will fall in front of you. Let's make the math. Any good mathematicians over here? Well, we said last week, there's no doctors. Everyone's businessmen. But this week we have 2 doctors with us. Okay, Baruch Hashem. Raise your hand, doctors. Thank you. Yeah. Asi's a doctor also. The doctor of social coordinations.
Doctor of life.
Chazak. So let's do numbers. What's the ratio of 5 to 100?
5%.
1 to 20.
So that's 1 to 20. Okay. And what's the ratio of 100 to 10,000?
1 to 100.
Right. So something's off over here. It should have been 100 to 2,000, not 100 to 10,000.
There's no chance.
This is not fair. Keep the ratio. Chachamim tell us that the more people that come together, the more unity there is, the more peace there is, the power is exponential. It does not make sense. Yes, it should be 1 to 20 and 100 to 2,000. No, the more it comes, the more that goes, the more power there is. And based on this, we obviously wanted to transition into chinuch, so we're going to get there. But I wanted to throw one part in right over here. People in life feel like one of the most important things is called family planning. How many kids are we going to have? We're going to have 1, we're going to have 2, we're going to have 10, 18. How many are we going to have?
Why are you holding my hand?
Because you're sitting next to me.
He does it always.
But today when he says 18,
If my wife was sitting next to me, I'd hold her hand.
You know what? I will do it. I will make it.
And one of the greatest concerns and considerations, and I was speaking with someone earlier today, actually earlier this evening, we're not going to mention them. I overheard them saying that he's going to get a roadster, a 2-door sports car. So I told him, beautiful, you're going to take me for a drive in it? He said, Rabbi, at the rate I'm going, if I have more kids, I'm not going to be able to afford it.
Exactly.
So I told him it's not true, and I'll explain now longer. We think that every belly we need to fill comes off of our budget, comes off of our allotted livelihood. One thing that each and every one who stops and thinks can vouch for, and I'm getting a lot of nods, every child that is brought into the family comes with their beracha. The Talmud says, a child comes with bread in their hand. What does that mean, bread? Does it comes with bread in the hand? When it comes out of the womb, there's no bread. It comes with parnasah. Every single child opening another door, opening another opportunity. Right? We can all attest to it. Personally, each and every one of us, speak to your parents, speak to your friends. It's something which almost doesn't make sense. It does not make sense.
It's the truth.
It's the truth. The truth, the facts, and that's the way it is. So when a person's thinking, now obviously we have to take things into consideration, but this is the concept. It's a 1 to 20 ratio. You want to say it's a 1 to 1 ratio, but the more kids a person has, the beracha starts becoming exponential and bigger and stronger and more powerful in every way possible. Going back to the concept of unity and going to the concept of chinuch yiladim. Principle number 1, and one day B'ezrat Hashem will sit down. I have 25 principles of chinuch. We've done it once. We'll do it again, B'ezrat Hashem. The first principle of chinuch, of successful chinuch, of childbearing and raising, is the husband-wife relationship. This is the foundation. This is the most important thing. When there is peace in the home, the Midrash says, when there's peace in the world, HaKadosh Baruch Hu dwells as Shekhinah amongst Bnei Israel. And if not, Hashem will be very hard to find. The same thing is in the house. The house is a mini world. The house is the world of our children. When there is peace in the home, between the husband and wife, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is there. The Talmud says, Ish and Isha. Very interesting, right? No. If you take Ish, Aleph, Yud, Shin, and Isha, Aleph, Shin, Hey, we have God's name there. We have the Yud and the Hey. Chazak. Unfortunately, if Hashem's missing, the Yud is not there, Hashem's not there, and the Hey is not there. You got not only one fire, you got a double fire. You have both fires, unfortunately, working against each other. It's so simple. You bring Hashem into the house. How do you bring Hashem into the house? You have peace. Peace. Chazak. That's exactly what the Gemara says. If a person brings peace into their home, they are inviting HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now, being peaceful is so great that brings the blessing. That brings the beracha. That welcomes Hashem into our house. Having that being the first principle of chinuch, it means having a good atmosphere at home. That a husband and wife should have the same voice. Children shouldn't come to one and ask for something and they say no, then they go to the other one. Being on the same page. Having no tension, or as little tension as possible. As human beings, we do disagree with our spouses, it's fine, but either not in front of the children or limit in front of the children, because the more tension there is in the house between husband and wife, the more insecurities are given to the children. Children who are insecure, most insecurities of children come from their insecurity of Abba and Ima. Because Abba and Ima is their life. It's their leaders. It's their creator. It's their help. It's everything. When they are not good, when they are imperfect with each other and there's tension with each other, the children feel scared. They feel alone in their world. Remember that the house is their world. The house has to be a place, a safe haven. The world is crazy. There's teachers, there's friends, there's bus rides, there's neighbors, there's the next door neighbor's dog, there's iguanas, there's bugs, there's everything in the world. There's bullies, there's mean people, there's nice people, but everything is outside and people are like this. When they come home, they need to feel to be able to put their guard down. And they'll only feel that when Abba and Ima are unified and they're united. They are all together. It is so important and so strong to the point where HaKadosh Baruch Hu has no choice but to give blessing. He couldn't even destroy those building the Tower of Babel because of unity. Imagine if you and your wife have good intentions. You and your husband have good intentions and you're working together for the good. HaKadosh Baruch Hu could only send beracha and more beracha and more beracha. Something so important when it comes to peace and unity. There's a concept of being smart and not being right. It's better to be smart than to be right. And listen to the following anecdote. Imagine you're crossing the street. Now, in every country in the world there's different rules, but I learned this rule the real way in Eretz Yisrael. In Eretz Yisrael there's a special rule. If a person a pedestrian has one toe of their foot on the street, the car has to stop. No matter what. If the car does not even abruptly stop, they're at fault. So now what happens? Israelis, right? Some yes, some don't. Now watch this.
Nobody gonna take it from us.
What happens if you step in and you see a guy driving, you see he's not slowing down, and you continue walking, and he's accelerating? If you want to be right, you're going to stay in the middle, you're going to cross the road. And you're going to cross, and he'll hit you.
No, then, yes.
What's going to be? Either injured or finished. But you were right. If you're smart, you're not going to take that chance. And that is exactly what it means between spouses, between friends, between family members. Being right or being smart. Sometimes being right does not mean that you are smart. And sometimes people say things or do things, and the right thing to do is to reprimand. The right thing to do is not to talk to them. The right thing to do is to insult them back. But you know what the smart thing to do is? Don't stay in the middle of the road if they're accelerating. Take a step back. Let them go. And that is the greatest. Between husband and wife, things come up. If you want to be right, oh, you'll flex and boy, you'll be right. But you're not going to be smart. Look in the past, those times that you took a step back, how that smart move led to only good things. And those times that you wanted to prove to be right, unfortunately, those are things which bring a person down. Being right sinks the ship. Being smart lets the ship keep on sailing. Communication. Life is like a chess game. If anyone's ever played chess, and even on a high level, you understand that every move that you make has a ramification and a repercussion. Everything you say has a repercussion. Everything you do. So being smart is much better than being right. If we could name this class, before we move on to the next topic, which is one of the most fascinating, we would name it as Stronger Together. Being stronger together. And this applies most importantly as one spouse, with one's children. Instead of working against your children, coming down on your children, telling your children how it should be or how you would have wanted it to be with them. Go together with them. Instead of against. Friends, family members, when we are together and when we are unified, we are so much more powerful. As we saw, the beracha and the success is exponential. And the more that are brought together, the stronger it gets. Tonight happens to be the 5th Hilula of Chacham Ovadia Yosef, Zecher Tzadik Livracha. We all know Chacham Ovadia. It was definitely a very famous individual in the modern Jewish world. One of the greatest, if not the greatest, Torah giant and leader in our generation. He passed away at 93 years old, which is a very ripe age. He was chief rabbi for 10 years, from 1973 to 1983. He was a very special individual. But I want to say something which, in honor of this week's parasha, in honor of tonight's topic of chinuch and peace, something which sticks out special about him. Chacham Ovadia Yosef had 11 children. That's a lot of children. He was a very busy individual. He found time, and honestly, I don't know from where, to spend time with each of his children. And you want to know the greatest proof? If we take many other Torah scholars or Torah leaders, and we're not going to mention any names, of the current or previous generation, or even earlier. If we look at their children, some of their children are very observant, some less, some maybe not engaged or involved at all. One thing we can say about Chacham Ovadia Yosef is that all 11 of his children are not just involved or observant, they're leaders in their own right. All of his grandchildren are all following Derech Torah Mitzvot. Do you think that just happens? Why would it happen for one individual and for most it doesn't? There must be something different that he's doing. When asked, you want to know what he said? Get ready for this. He answered, it's the power of Shabbat. What does that mean, the power of Shabbat? Well, to us that means, of course, all the phones are off, no one's working, there's no communication with anyone else, it's just the family. But it's more than that. It's the power of the Shabbat table. You know why? Because at the Shabbat table, when you spend time with your family and you involve each and every one, he says the only reason why all his children are following, it's not because their father told them what to read or told them how to do or what to do. It was singing Shabbat songs at the table. Can you imagine the power of just a song? But it's a song every week, every Shabbat meal, over and over. And he attributes, and we can say many, many, many things, great things that he did, that he gave over to his children, his grandchildren. But he says, the reason why his family is all following in that way is because of the Shabbat table and specifically singing together at the Shabbat table. If we can learn one thing from this parasha, from Chavadia Yosef, Zechuto Yagen Aleinu, Amen, that when we come together with our families at the Shabbat table, number one, we're united. And the power of that unity is very strong. And when we engage them and involve them and sing with them, that is what will give them the power. We cannot underestimate the power of Shabbat. After learning this, we can never underestimate the power of unity, and we should never underestimate the power of singing together with your children, with your guests, with your family members. It's something so powerful and so special. So we want to end off with giving a bracha to our host and hostess, that they will continue to have a lot of bracha, a lot of unity, a baby girl this year, a lot of happiness, a lot of bracha, and only good things, that the merit of Chavadia Yosef
I want
will
to
be
do
here.
something. I just want to keep going and doing it and doing it and doing it.
חזק וברוך, חזק וברוך.
אם אנחנו נמשיך לעשות את זה ביחד כולנו, יש לנו קופי.
חבר'ה, לחיים כולם
לחיים,
לבוא.
לחיים.
לחיים. כל הכבוד.
לזכות הבת, לזכות הבת, לפרלי, לזכות הבת של הבית.
מה
יש
זה
לי
טוב,
3
פרלי?
ילדים עם פרלי.
חזק
בלי
וברוך.
פרלי אין ברכה לבית.
Let's put our hands together for Mor and Pearl.
אם לא פרלי אין בית.
אני אומר אותו דבר על אשתי, והיא האישה שלי, אין בה.
תשמע, אנחנו תמיד אומרים תודה לאישה, כל הכבוד לך, אבל מה עם הבעל?
מה, היא לא אמרה?
חזק וברוך.